All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Ridgeline Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Phillips Game Calls, professional grade game calls made for every hunter. Now we have a guest on the phone. Ryan?
Correct.
Ryan, how would you like to kick this off? Tell us a little bit about yourself and then, why we brought you on to the podcast, talk about your business.
Yeah, I still don't know. My name is Ryan Garrett. I'm with Blue Ridge Rifle. I am the sole employee of this company at the moment. I am a custom rifle pistol manufacturer out in Colville, Washington, and I specialize in hunting and defense weapons.
So you're doing more of the like machine shopping, or how are you making these weapons?
So this is always fun. We live in, of course, the post-COVID supply chain world, right? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, tooling is affected by that right now. So I have been building my machine shop capabilities over the past year. I'm still building weapons, but for the most part, I'm having to utilize other manufacturers' parts, which is, of course, not the most profitable thing in the world for me. I'm working to bring more and more of my operation in-house. In October, this tells you how ridiculous everything is because I've been trying to get a lathe for a year now. In October, I'll be getting my machine lathe, and that's going to open up pretty much everything. I've got my mill all set up. I've got 3D printing capabilities. I have extensive woodworking capabilities, so I can do custom stocking, that sort of thing. You name it, I can pretty much build out of that material.
Okay. So I had been made aware of your company from Dave, and I did some research, as far as just looking into the company, see what you did, and so I got an overview on the Instagram page and website. Are you specializing more into the rifle side, or are you specializing more into like defensive pistol? Tier 1, tier 2 type stuff, or what is your specialty, you would say?
What are my specialties? So my biggest thing is that I really like practical weapons. So I like weapons that have a job, be that a defense weapon, be that a hunting weapon. I'm not really into the competition scene. Don't get me wrong. Precision rifle shooting and shooting for time is really fun, but it's just not the type of stuff I like to build. I like things that have a very practical application, and as such, I really like putting together packages for people that basically include the whole package of what they need to get started. I like to say I give people everything but the bullets and the training, and it's so hard to actually find that these days. You go out, you buy a rifle, and you want to put a decent scope on it, but you don't know what rings to use or anything like that. And I think most of us haven't even experienced a really well-mounted scope in our lifetime. Because every time I mount a scope for one of my customers in the shop, they're always just like blown away by the difference.
So you would provide something that's more, I guess, much more luxurious product in the end, something that's going to be like an excellent cold bore shot. Is that the focus? Getting all that stuff dialed in, where when you're in the field and you have to take that first shot, it's going to be the best one.
Yeah, and more importantly, also not exhausting you in the field either. I think a lot of people don't really think about. We all love rifles that'll put bullets in the same hole at 100, 200, 300 yards, right?
Oh yeah,
and that's great. But if you're going to do that, then the best way to do that is to put a giant bull barrel on there and try and extract as much velocity as possible, and then of course tune your load so that it's stable at those velocities. But go ahead and carry that 15-pound rifle around the mountains all day and see if you can make an accurate shot, especially through thick brush. So there's there's a balance to be had there. I'd rather have a lightweight rifle that has a shorter barrel, ideally something in the 16 to 18 inch range for barrel length is what I tend to hunt with, because I like to hunt really thick stuff, and I like to be able to have a rifle that's going to come along with me just fine without hanging me up on every scrap of brush I go through.
Yeah.
So when I do have that moment of truth, I'm not beat.
The rifle can definitely wear you down.
So if I came to you with an email, or if I hit you up on Instagram and said, Ryan, I'm looking for the optimal backcountry hunting rifle, what weight are you looking at overall without a scope? Just because scopes are ounces now, or maybe even just a pound. What are you looking at caliber wise? So if I say this is what I'm hunting mule deer and elk, and I want a lightweight backcountry rifle that's going to perform hands down, what would you suggest?
Ooh, that's so fun.
Because I'm in the market for one.
You're in the market for one.
Yeah, and it could be 2024, because I wouldn't mind being a customer of yours. So when you get your lathe and everything.
Absolutely. Caliber-wise, we've got a suite of really excellent calibers out there, and we keep developing new ones, which is both good and bad. It's great because we're figuring out new ways to achieve different results, and we're also prioritizing different things when we make these new calibers. A lot of caliber design is kind of driven by what kind of power can you fit in this type of magazine. Like the last, 10, 15 years, there's been a lot of cartridge design that is based around what we can fit in an AR-15 mag, or what we can fit in an AICS pattern mag, which is kind of your short action mag that's typically meant for like a 308.
Right.
Fact,
there's been a lot of calibers developed around that 308.
Right. And I love the 308 Winchester, even though it's an older round. The 6.5 Creedmoor obviously outperforms it in a lot of ways.
Oh my goodness!
Except for one, and that is when you start chopping the barrel length down, the 308 actually loses less velocity than the 6.5 Creedmoor does. So I'm a big fan of that. But then again, I like getting very, very close to my animals too. I can shoot long range, but I'm not a long range shooter. If you're looking for something optimal that's going to really reach out and touch something in a lightweight package that's kind of a short action, which is going to be something that's going to be quick, wieldy, I think the 6.8 Western is probably a really good newer cartridge to look at if you want to stick to something that is easier to find. I think its parent cartridge, the 270, is going to be an excellent option for you.
Yeah, the 6.8 Western was actually a caliber that I was looking at.
I'm already confused, Ryan. So I have 308s, I got 270s, I got 30-06s, I got 30-30s, 45-70s, 357 lever guns. I got pretty much a lot of rifles and all standard calibers, none of these Wildcat derivatives from the classics, So, speaking of the 308, you had to throw his evil cousin 6.5 in there, and so I give you the, what are you talking about? You redeemed yourself because you said once you get into a shorter barrel length, which is something that you specialize in, making that lighter weight rifle, that 308 picks it back up again. But with those two things in mind, long range versus hunting in the thicker stuff, getting in the brush, and searching game, if you had a hunter who's, say, not in the Midwest shooting long range at antelope or whatever they have there, right? Whitetail deer, 400 yards or whatever. If you were a Western hunter or somewhere where there was thicker foliages, then if you had a 200-yard shot and you had a 308 in your hand or the 6.5, and you flipped a coin, what would you hope the coin landed on? 308 or 6.5 at those distances?
400 yards.
200 yards.
Oh, probably
200 yards.
308.
You know, they're both going to put that animal down. To be really honest, you're not really splitting the hairs on those two calibers. Those two cartridges, unless you're starting to get out really past about 400 yards. You don't really see those appreciable differences of performance, terminal performance, until you get past that, and then you start seeing that. But I would say, I mean, personally, you know, the animal I'm hunting when I've got a rifle in my hand tends to be bear. I hunt ungulates with a bow, and I hunt bears with a rifle. That's kind of the way I do things. I really want to get a bear with a bow at some point, though.
That's exactly where we're at, too. We usually only primarily hunt with a rifle when we're hunting at bears. That's it.
Yeah. And bears are tough. I'm not going to lie, the first bear that I ever took, I took that bear at a range of, 12 yards. And I was staring at this bear.
Yeah, I know.
His skull measured 20 and 5/16, and he had the body size to match.
Dang.
And he was quartering towards me. So I honestly, even though I'm running a 165 grain AccuBond, I took the headshot because I wanted to make sure that he went down and stayed down.
Yeah, and didn't just
so I really
run right at you.
Trophy on that, but you know, it was obviously a clean, ethical shot. Put him down. That's what I cared about way more than anything else, as I think any hunter should. And I wouldn't advise a headshot for anybody who doesn't know exactly where their bullet's going.
Yeah.
But for that circumstance.
That AccuBond, that's a Nosler round?
Yes.
Okay. And do you load your own ammunition for the AccuBond?
Yeah, I will do that. Or, you know, if I'm in a hurry, I think Federal does a really excellent job just with their stock ammo. I've always been very impressed by it. But yeah, the AccuBond is an excellent bullet, as is the Partition, which is kind of another version of that same thing. There's also some really excellent, you know, if you're trying to get away from lead, which I know a lot of us are, there's some good non-lead options out there. I'm trying to remember the one that Nosler makes, but I know the copper impact is also a pretty solid round.
Yeah. So I guess my question, maybe I tried to make a connection that I didn't make very clear, but when you were talking about making a gun more lightweight and shortening the barrel length, if you were to take a regular 700 action and put a 16-inch barrel on it, and you were ready to go, and do a brush hunt, and you knew your shot was going to be under 200 yards, would you be more accurate with the 308 versus 6.5, or would you choose it based on that knowledge?
Oh yeah, I would probably, especially for me anyway, just because I'm so familiar with the 308 out of a 16-inch barrel. That's a trajectory I know at this point. Yes, I would be more comfortable doing that at that point. But, you know, a big piece of that is just going to the range and either buying one yourself, they're pretty cheap these days, or finding a buddy who has one, or coming out to my place and I'll help you do it. Chrono your gun. Figure out how fast your bullet is going and figure out the ballistic coefficient of that bullet so that you have the ability to draw out a good dope chart for the load that you use. And then stick that dope chart on like a little Excel spreadsheet on the scope of your gun with some clear tape. And then you have an instant reference point to know exactly where that bullet's going to go every time. because the fall of your bullet is the most predictable element. What's going to screw you up is wind.
Oh,
Wind is
just the
always
wind of
the thing
and the elements just alone.
Yeah, but the fall of your bullet is predictable. It does the same thing every time because gravity is 32 feet per second constantly. Thank God. Like, we don't need one more thing to think about, right?
So in a nutshell, your bullet, no matter what it's being shot at, is always falling at the same rate. If it's all shot from a level plane, every bullet will hit the ground in the same amount of time. The thing you're doing
exactly. Well, and gravity only affects your projectile in the vertical plane too. That's why we have those compensators on our rangefinders these days that do the math for us, that tell us how far our target is away from us horizontally. Because
this is we can go. I mean, this gets deep, you know.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm trying to break it down for someone who knows absolutely zero. So and that includes me. So if you had two rifles, it could be any rifle, 50 BMG and a 22 long rifle, side by side on the level shooting plane, both fired at the same time. Both bullets should impact the ground at pretty much the same time, based on Newton's law or something like that. So gravity works the same.
Yes and no. Well, yes and no. You have to remove air and air resistance. So if you did this on the moon, and let's just go ahead and say the moon had enough gravity that the 50 BMG wouldn't hit escape velocity, which I have no idea if it would or not. That's now math I don't know. I need to look that up.
So in my head, like I said, guy that knows nothing, right? Right. I'm thinking they're going to hit the ground close to the same time. The difference being
they would if there wasn't air, if there was no air resistance. But the fact is,
just because the 50 BMG is like the size of a football.
No. So the difference in my head, if it all works the same, it shoots both at the same time, bullets leave the barrel at the same time, hit the ground at the same time. 50 BMG is going to be way farther out when it hits the ground than the 22 long rifle. So we're covering distance at the rate of the drop. So that's where you're going to get your artillery range coordinates, right? You're going to figure out the rise you need to cover the run.
Oh yeah,
and gravity, and that's why ballistics are so predictable, because it's just simple math that scientists know and I don't. So, but it's all pretty much the same in the end, you know. But you're covering that distance at the same. Your further distance, you're covering with a faster bullet, and then when things go fast, they're incredibly unstable the faster they go. So you have to really have ability to stay there, and that's where the 6.5 comes ahead.
Mm-hmm. And that's why in Top Gun his plane ripped apart.
Hey, spoiler alert! You gotta put.
If you haven't watched Top Gun, the newest one,
don't go any further into it. It's great. It's a great movie. You know, we're looking for the Mach 10.2 bullet. You know, got to get that.
No. I mean, well, and what's kind of funny about that is we've been moving actually more in the direction of slowing our bullets down just a little bit and trying to make those bullets heavier so that they can deliver that payload a little bit further, because we're starting to have that realization that, you know, the faster we pull that, the faster we push that bullet, the harder air resistance is bucking up against it.
Well, so that and the bullets have been getting longer.
A little bit slower and give it more weight and more a better ballistic coefficient, then it's going to carry that energy further out. That's actually the whole idea behind, you know, what I mentioned earlier, that 6.8 Western.
Yep, the 6.8 Western, the 300 PRC. So there's the bullets are definitely changing.
They're longer for one. So, you know, you're losing a little bit of room for powder, which, you know, 10 years ago, that would have just absolutely ticked everybody off. And by the way, 6.5 Creedmoor, same school of thought, is to make that bullet longer, give it a better ballistic coefficient.
Yeah.
Use a little bit of powder, but it takes that energy further. And that's why I said earlier, you know, you don't really see those ballistic differences until you start getting
Yeah, there's that 6.8 Western. It's funny you mentioned that because the other day I'd never heard of the 6.8 Western. I don't follow
Mhm.
the ammo that closely, but Scott Haugen, hunting guy, he posted a thing. Says that he shot this what kind of bear is this? He shot some bear with a 6.8 Western, and he talks about his setup. And I looked at the bullet and I was like, "Is that thing even in the cartridge? Like it's like
Yeah, it's
barely."
super
Have
long.
you seen it? There's like the bullet is probably a half an inch shorter outside of the cartridge than the cartridge length. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, so that's a long action rifle, right?
No,
Really?
well,
Good God.
technically, it's a short action rifle. But if we want to get into the nitty gritty details, I'm building one right
Mhm.
now
A,
for.
a 6.8,
Yep, yeah.
lightweight.
If we want to get into the nitty gritty details, so I have some Winchester copper impact on me right now, and those measured out at 2.090 inches. And I really feel like that AICS mag that I have really needs to be at 2.0, sorry, 2.9. I apologize earlier. My brain's a little
No, that's
fried.
fine. It's a
It
lot of
was
numbers.
2.90. It really needs to be 2.915. I need 15 thousandths of an inch more space in my AICS mag. They fit, but unless you're really careful about the geometry of your magazines, you might have feeding issues on not generally the second bullet. If you just load 2 bullets in your gun, it's going to work just fine. But the third one kind of wants to cant and hang up.
Oh, I got you.
Long story short, I'm custom fabricating mags out of AICS pattern mags to make 6.8 Western factory ammo fit properly.
Okay. Yeah, that's a
Just
good
like
idea when you run into an
manufacturer
issue.
says.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And you have the capabilities of doing that in house. That's pretty cool.
So
Yeah.
I have a 270 WSM. Now,
Right.
what I'm operating on for overall length is 2.86.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What was that? 6.8 Western length?
2.9.
It's almost the same. Like you can make a mistake loading these and be at 2.9 and they will still load.
Yeah, you probably could. I need to look at the SAMI data to see where exactly you're supposed to be at, but you could probably shorten that off in the case and lose a little bit of powder.
So my 270, I've been loading that one since 2005 or 4. Yeah, probably 2006. My short mag. And so I've dialed that one in pretty well, but I have, I have a micrometer and everything, so when I'm loading, I'm checking all the measurements, make sure they're right, but the difference in 4 thousandths of an inch is just a little bit. I mean, it's really small. I mean, you probably can't even see it if it was sitting on the countertop, something that small. So, and
Yeah.
it's like a grain of sand, like, literally. So that 6.8 Western, if it was inside of that gun, it would go into the action from the magazine. But mine's an internal
I don't think
magazine.
it would. I'd have to look at how they're head spaced, but I don't actually think it would, not off the top of my head. Now, granted, semi specs are one of those things where when you ask those questions, you kind of need to look up the answers because at a certain point, you're just going to start having horrible dyslexia with what number was what. I mean, I did it a few seconds ago where I replaced it with 2.090 instead of 2.900. So
Yeah. No,
I
I'm not saying put a 6.8 Western in your 270 short mag. What I'm saying is that
no, that would also be bad.
when I had a short action rifle, I looked at that case and I had questioned if is that a short action round, because looking at it and it's very, from a picture, it's confusing to see a bullet that long.
It is designed to fit, but so that's designed to fit according to an engineer, but you start getting into the practicalities of modern manufacturing and there's going to be variances in your magazines. Some magazines are probably going to work a little bit better. Some are going to work a little bit worse, especially if the manufacturer of the ammunition tends to push their round to the maximum, overall length of what the round should be. So
Yeah.
you just get into that problem of stacking tolerance, where one company made the hole too small, and the other company made the thing that fits in the hole too big.
Yeah, it's crazy
And
how
they
tight
crossed the
everything
line
is.
a little bit. Yeah. So.
Yeah, looking at that.
But no, it does fit in those mags, and the first two bullets feed just fine. But when I was testing it, the third was not working, and in a 5-round AICS pattern mag, you're going to fit 4 of those State Western.
So I just pulled out a 270 short mag round, and I'm looking at how the bullet's seated in the cartridge size. How do they get a bullet that long?
They shortened the cartridge.
Yeah, I'm looking at the cartridge. I'm thinking how much shorter it could be. It probably looks like one of those, what do they call that, a TCM mag or a TCM bullet, little pistol round.
It's
super small, neck
super
down.
fat in relation to how long it is.
Yeah, like you're sitting there looking like it's like 50% cartridge, 50% bullet when you look at the picture. But yeah. So they necked down and shortened the cartridge, and then they put a longer bullet in there. They don't need as much energy or something like that. Yeah, man, that's a good thing they got scientists, because I would probably screw up all that math.
Yeah.
Yeah, that 6.8 is
that's why I'm not in
insane.
round development. I just look at the statistics that come from that round and see if it's actually going to suit my intended purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm more of a researcher when it comes to that piece of it than an actual, developer. I'll leave that to the people who want to mess around with case pressure math all day, because it's
okay. When you build someone a custom rifle, do they have to? Do they spec it out for you, or do you say, here's the type of barrel we use, this is the receiver, we're going to use this type of bolt? I mean, how do you get to the point where you deliver someone a product?
Yeah, no, I agree. My big thing is I wanted to give people the ability to avoid making a lot of the mistakes I did. So I don't know about you guys, but I have several very large Rubbermaid containers full of parts or accessories or just various things that didn't work on my firearms equipment, for
us too.
years and years and years and years. And, I'm sure as a bow hunter, you probably got a pile of releases somewhere you didn't like, right?
Yep, they ended up on OfferUp.
And sights. And arrows.
Yep. And sights and arrows. I kind of want to give my customers, especially new customers, because in 2020, we saw a huge spike in new firearms ownership. And I want to give those people who are just getting into it a resource to get set up right from the outset without having to fill one of those Rubbermaid containers. So I like to meet with my clients, whether you're a really experienced person or whether you're really new to it, and discuss, your likes, your dislikes, what you want. If ideally, I like to have you actually in my shop. I'm a by appointment only shop. That way I can actually give each and every one of my customers the attention they deserve. Because that way we can figure out what actually fits you too. I can take measurements on you and make sure that things are actually going to work out. Because there's nothing worse than a gun that doesn't fit you correctly. And the fact that more people haven't recognized that is kind of astonishing. I mean, try to pick up your buddy's compound bow and shoot it successfully.
Right.
It's not going to work out well. Well, it's the same thing for a rifle. Your rifle should absolutely fit you. And even though rifles are designed to kind of fit the 95th percentile of human dimensions, the fact is you probably have a couple of those dimensions that are outside of the 95th percentile. Like maybe you have really high cheekbones or really low cheekbones, or your, arm is a little bit longer, or you have really huge hands. Like my hands are enormous. And my wife's hands are teeny tiny.
Mhm.
The way a gun needs to be constructed for me is not the same as the way a gun needs to be constructed for her. So I just want to meet with my clients, figure out what they want, and then kind of guide them through the process of making sure that we make the right decisions and that they're going to be happy with those decisions down the line. So it's kind of it's very much a collaboration when I build somebody a gun.
I think something you touched on there is super important that probably can be overlooked is that you have a product you can deliver to the female crowd. Because being honest, most women aren't the same size as men, and
Oh yeah,
their
definitely not.
ergonomics are different, and their cheekbones are different. Like you listed a lot of things that is common through people, but women just have a different structure, and
Yep.
their hands are a different size. And like my daughters, I have two daughters, and they both, one's in hunter's ed, one's hunted. This will be her second year, and it's one of those things where you never think of it as a guy, like, oh yeah, here's my gun, go ahead and take it out and shoot it, and you're fine. But there's a lot of things that are missing from the shooting community and the hunting community in general that need to be tailored to the specific audience so they can actually enjoy what they're doing. And I having daughters, it's like a personal thing, because I'm sitting here thinking, like, I should probably get my daughter a gun because she's probably close to being done growing, and then she can get off the factory model and shoot better with something more specific.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good.
That was actually one of the 4 frustrations that led to me starting this company, was the absolute lack of female weapons. And I say that there's the firearms community is catching up a little bit in that regard. There are a couple of weapons that have been released in the last few years that are for females, but what often happens is either they're marketed in a very condescending way. You get the pink rifle that absolutely drives me nuts, drove my wife nuts, got into hunting. Or you get, a form-fitting rifle for females, but for some reason it costs 20, 30, 40% more than the male counterpart. That really ticks me off. I think that's just absolutely wrong. One company that I will mention got it absolutely right very recently was Walther with their PDP, which is an excellent defense pistol. I know this is a hunting podcast, but I just kind of have to mention that because they marketed the F series as just being a defense pistol for women, and all they did is they fixed the ergonomics so it fits better in smaller hands. And everything about that pistol, including the price, is the same. More companies need to follow that suit.
Yeah, so, from the manufacturing aspect, it's kind of cost driven down by production rates, and then specializing it. There's less market, more specific production is harder, but it seems like you're more already set up for that. So you're going to have a pretty close ballpark between, if it's a guy or girl, it doesn't really matter. You're going to make the rifle that they need, and it's going to be able to fit them, and they're going to enjoy it. And I'm super interested because, the one thing I hate, I'm telling my daughter all the time, I'm like, no, you gotta look at, can you see through the scope? Is the eye relief right? And like, in the length of pool is just a hair too long. And I'm like, geez, man. And
yeah, it's never just right. There's always something that they have to compensate for because they're built different.
And she's leaned over farther. Then I'm like, no, don't lean over that. It's not her fault. I come to find out it's not her fault. They made the dang gun for everybody,
Yeah, that's a big problem that runs into a lot of women when they're getting started into shooting. I mean, you have the worst case scenario of that, which is some bubba who hands their wife a 12-gauge shotgun with a 3-inch shell, and last one, they knock them over.
Yeah,
which, by the way, anybody who does that, just PSA, don't do that.
Yeah, that's pretty messed up.
You are losing out on a hunting buddy.
I did that to me, and I won't shoot a 3-inch shell. Like 2 3/4 max.
So you've got the short length of pull then. Probably.
No, I have a Benelli Super Black Eagle that doesn't like 3.5-inch turkey loads.
Oh man, that was a shoulder. I'm a Benelli Nova guy, and that thing is a shoulder punishing shotgun.
Yep, I got
I
the
love
same
it.
thing.
Oh, it shoots. It's great. That 3.5-inch shell, I still have 17 of the rounds left if you're interested. No low ball offers because I know what I got, okay?
You can't look at those shells without thinking, ooh, is it worth it?
I'm saving them for someone special. You know? Like, eventually someone's gonna need some rounds, and they're gonna bargain, so they'll get a deal.
I see.
I'm gonna give them a 3-to-1 offer.
That's funny. Well, it's one thing if you do it to you, but it's another thing doing it to somebody getting into it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, just the fact that because you have to, if your length of pull is too long specifically, you have to lean away from that gun so much that you're already contorting your spine in a very specific way. In fact, it's so specific, it reminds me of this like a martial arts move from Aikido, where you use your forearm to cross across somebody's chest and push onto their left shoulder, and you can basically use that to move their torso into a position where they can't do anything but fall down. It's just it's a skeletal mechanics thing. You're putting yourself into that exact contorted position when you shoot a gun that has that much extra length of pull. And I've done it with my buddy who manages to be bigger than me. He gave me his 7mm mag, and it just, I was hurting for days. Mm-hmm. So, that the ergonomics can make a really big difference. And the other piece of that is it makes a big difference to your accuracy too, because you need to be able to fit specifically to the scope of your gun, so that when you snap that thing up to your shoulder, you are looking through the crosshairs. The crosshairs are in focus. Everything is clean and clear, and you're eliminating as much parallax error as possible because your cheek is just hitting the same part of that scope the same part of that cheek rest every single time. That consistency leads to accuracy, and it leads to being good with the rifle and enjoying yourself and going out and getting more game.
Yeah, especially like sometimes you have a scenario where you're only going to have not very much time to get that scope up on an animal and make a shot, So the longer you sit there, the better your odds of that thing walking off are, So having something that fits well, it goes hand in hand with, being successful. If it fits well, you're going to shoot it better. If you can bring it up quicker, you get the scope on target, you can make your shot. Maybe you don't rush your shot as much because you're not in a hurry.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the confidence in that firearm as well, because that you're going to perform, your best with that rifle that's custom made for you. And that's what I'm really looking at.
Yeah, and all of our people listening, if anybody that's shot archery for any time, or even 2 days, if they've shot a bow that doesn't fit, they know, like, man, this thing's just awkward. You're either your elbow's bent too much, you're getting pain, you're slapping your wrist, you're not making accurate shots, and so all those things of fit and finish go to play. I mean, we're from the archery world, so we're very familiar with good fitting material equipment. But when you get that bow that you've had, that you're like, oh, this is the draw length, you're off by half an inch. This is what you need. This is this is the correct poundage. You get all these things dialed in, and you shoot that bow, and it doesn't feel like anything happened. You're like, man, I can see the arrow fly. You're like, this is great because I don't have a shockwave going through my body.
Mm-hmm.
My head's not jostling around. I'm not leaning over to look through the peep sight. Peep's in the right position. Same thing with the scope. So I'm super intrigued, and I can't wait to get like a personalized rifle. I'm at the stage, where I'm like, hey, I need to probably step it up and do this, get some stuff dialed in. Do you meet with?
Yeah, no, there's some awesome stuff out there, and putting together a good rifle. I mean, it does take a lot of time right now, just because, again, the supply chain thing is affecting absolutely everybody. One of the stock makers that I use a lot for, like that 6.8 Western that I'm building right now, is 8 months out, 6 months out, 8 months out, something like that. So, it's definitely not the sort of thing where if you want something really, really super custom, I mean, and it depends on what you want. But if you want something super, super, super custom, you're not hunting with it this season.
Yeah.
It's just that's just the nature of that particular beast, unfortunately.
Yeah, you got to plan somewhat.
Yeah, and that's why I said, like once he can start manufacturing most of his stuff in house, give me a call.
Yeah. Well, I think what
even if not, one of my questions is, if I was to come to you, say this is what I would like, blah blah blah. Right now, what are you looking at for like the products? So like
the product
time.
No, not lead time. Like what rifle am I gonna get?
What components are you looking at?
Yeah, like
barrel manufacturing.
Like the action, the stock. Like if I was to put in an order, right now, like what rifle am I going to be, holding eventually?
Yeah. So you're probably right now, if I was going to build something, and again, I like to think in terms of the complete weapons system, not just the rifle itself. It kind of stinks that a lot of people sell a rifle and then they don't sell the scope, the rings, the sling, everything that goes into it. But I would definitely say for a bolt action rifle, I'm going to build it off of the Terminus action. Joel makes an incredible product. That is a rock solid clone of the Remington 700 action, which, plenty of incredibly accurate rifles have been built on that platform, and Terminus has essentially perfected that action. So guys like me who like to build really high-end stuff are willing to pay him to do that manufacturing process, because the equipment necessary to do that right is cost prohibitive for a small business. There's no way that even a mid-sized company could really afford it if that's not basically the only thing they did, which again, that's the only thing they do. So it'd be built off of the Terminus action. It would probably be running a Criterion barrel, because they make a really excellent product. And then we'd run with a Macmillan stock of some sort, just because it's lightweight. Or you could go with an MDT if you wanted to mess around with like the Hunt 26 platform. That's a very, very lightweight chassis system. It doesn't have that traditional look, but I've built a lot of rifles on chassis systems that are very clean and clear. They shoot very well. I'd recommend going with a 2-stage Trigger Tech Diamond trigger, because those are awesome. And then, depending on what kind of horrible stuff you like to hunt, I'd probably throw a Trijicon 1-6 Credo on there. I think a lot of people don't look at the low end of their magnification, but the fact is, sometimes stuff pops up really close. And if you can keep that scope on a true 1 power, you can snap that thing to your eye and take off a crack off a shot as easily as if you were looking through iron sights or a red dot. And that is a game-getting aid. If you're running with a 3 power, it's going to be a lot harder, and a lot of people seem to want to go like a 4-20 on their hunting rig sometimes, and I just dial it down. You don't need that much magnification. Get yourself a low-end zoom, and I think you'll be really pleased with it.
Yeah, and that Trijicon, does that one have that has that illuminated reticle in there too, right?
Yeah, you can do that. There are some that they've been coming up with some that have like a solar capture version, so it doesn't even use batteries. It just kind of enhances the ambient light in the area for the illumination, which is pretty cool, because it also kind of auto adjusts to what conditions you happen to be in. And if you really needed to dim it, there's kind of a shade where you turn that around. The one I'm thinking of, the Credo model, just uses a plain old battery in it. Or you could go really nuts and buy yourself a Schmidt and Bender scope. Those are fantastic. For full disclosure, my wife has entirely better firearms than I do.
Usually how it works.
So she's got the Schmidt and Bender, and I've got the Credo, and they're both fantastic. But man, that Schmidt's pretty nice.
We have that same excuse. We call it Devin needs this.
Yeah, my oldest son. Yeah, he's like my size, so it's just like, oh yeah, he needs a new pack.
Honey, I'm building you an incredible rifle. And then you're always shooting it. You're like, hey, this is for you. Got to make sure it works.
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly. It's that whole like I get to play with it while I build it. That's nice.
Yeah, that's kind of the one of the perks of being in there.
So
yeah, I get to mess with a lot of different firearms, which is really helpful. I kind of recently built an AR-10 for a customer, and I really want that exact same configuration that I built.
Yeah, AR-10s are super sweet.
Yes, that they can be really tough to tune. This one was kind of interesting because it had a 16-inch barrel with a rifle length gas system, which is not a lot of dwell time. So tuning that properly so that it cycled correctly was a little bit more on the interesting side. But again, Criterion did a pretty good job with their math on the gas port size, because that's how they controlled that, and it just required a little bit of tweaking with the gas block, making sure you use if you're going to build an AR-10 from scratch, put an adjustable gas block on there, because it will save you when you finally suppress it.
I'll tell you, I have an AR-10 story. It's kind of, and maybe it's not so unique, but to me, I think it's unique. I was looking for a over-under shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
I was shooting a lot of trap. I'm going to get an over-under and be like these fancy guys, I'm out here with my 870 and my Benelli and doing okay. So I find this guy that has an over-under for sale. It was a Browning Satori over-under. I go to his shop. I look at the Browning. He says, I'll sell you this gun, but if you want to buy that gun, you have to buy this AR-10. I'm like, what? So I really wanted the over-under. So I bought both. And needless to say, after I shot the AR-10, I just got rid of the over-under and went back to my Benelli. So I don't have the over-under anymore. So, yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So you ended up with the extra being the one you stuck around with.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. Like I was super happy with it, and so I thought it was kind of plain. I was like, man, this is just really kind of, I don't really need this gun or want it, but now it's like, shoot, man, that's super fun taking it out, and it shoots really good. So happy with that whole interaction. But yeah. So AR-10s are
and there's a lot of aftermarket you can do on that. What kind of how's the trigger on it?
Works every time I pull it. I mean, it's stiff. I mean, it's
hard every time. Good.
I can't recall from my memory, when like how it feels, if there's any creep or anything. But from what I remember, it takes up nice when I'm on target. It doesn't seem like it has a lot of creep in it or anything like that. It's pretty crisp for a factory trigger. It's a single stage, but it just, as soon as you get on it and you feel that resistance, it's close to going off. There's nothing that's going to cause you to have to squeeze extra, kind of work into it. It just snaps like spaghetti noodle, tink, and it's gone, So for a factory trigger, I can't complain, and it works pretty good. And you can, if you want.
That's the thing about factory. Sometimes they're really, really excellent. I threw a factory trigger in a gun a couple months back, and I remember it was kind of like in my spare parts bin, because it was for a customer who was on a really tight budget. That whole, hey, let's try and see if we can put this together for you. So we're gonna kind of go through the scratch and dent and see what we do. Sorry.
Oh, I was just, yeah.
So, we've been touching on the rifles here for a while now. You said you also do defense pistols as well?
Yes, I do. So I'm not making anything custom right now, but I do a fair amount of aftermarket modding on that sort of thing. And I also make sure that I am selling those pistols with accompanying accessories, basically your holster that is a properly vetted holster that actually follows the rules of what an acceptable holster is, which it absolutely terrifies me how many people either have a handgun and don't use a holster because they don't keep one in the chamber, or they don't have it in a holster that follows the basics of what a holster needs to be. These are just like what it needs to do to be acceptable, and that is it needs to retain that pistol through a shake test. It needs to completely block off the trigger guard to make the gun completely inert, and it needs to allow you to build a full firing grip on the gun prior to your draw cycle. So if it fails in any of those regards, it's part of that bin of shame I was talking about earlier, where it doesn't work. Like a good example is like Uncle Mike's neoprene holster. You can squeeze the trigger on that pistol while it's in that holster. That is not acceptable.
Mm-hmm. Like a pistol sleeve.
Yeah.
You know?
Just a pistol sock.
Not okay. And there's some excellent kydex being made these days by a lot of really good guys who know what they're doing and know what those rules are. But it's super surprising how hard it is to actually get something off the shelf, especially once you put a light on a pistol. Which, if you're going to run a defense pistol, I really do recommend you have a light on the gun, because you need to know what that threat is if you're going to run that pistol for home defense. And that light needs to be really bright, like as many lumens as possible and as much candela, because you want to be able to not point directly at the threat. You want to be able to be at a low ready and use the spill of the light to illuminate the room. And if you do have a threat, then you can point at the threat, and that person is only able to see the light. It washes you out completely. The good light for that is like the Spring Light TLR7. That is a really easy to holster pistol light because it's got a narrow profile. And on a double stack pistol, it means when you holster it, most holsters will they'll be a lot tighter to the grip than if you were going to use a wider light like a Surefire X300. There's going to be less gap there.
So I have a Streamlight SLR or a TR. I think it's a TLR or TR1. I can't remember what it is. Or it's either a 1 or a 3. And I did a test on that where I just was in a room and I shut the door and it was pitch black, and I turned it on the wall in front of me, like I just shined it towards the wall, and I couldn't see. It was like it reflected off the paint to where I was like, dude, if this thing's on you, you cannot see.
Yeah, it's a deterrent all on its own.
No, something bad's about to happen.
Yeah. They should be.
But I mean, they're blinded.
If they shine you, it hurts.
Yeah, if you find yourself on the side of one of them lights,
it's over.
Just put your hands up. Don't do nothing. Lay down flat.
If
do
all
whatever
you can see is light.
Yeah, you're about to be tunneled into it. Don't even mess around.
Yeah, but the point being is like that light is important enough especially if it's your only pistol. A lot of people are like, well, I'll have a home defense gun and I'll have a pistol. Well, not everybody has that kind of budget. And if you have a light on your gun, then your holster needs to fit with that light, because light-bearing holsters actually only retain off of the light, not the pistol itself. So it needs to actually fit with that whole combination. And then you start adding things like red dot and whatnot, and a lot of holster makers will suddenly not carry what you need for your gun. So I've just developed a really good list of industry connections for holster makers who will build the type of stuff that I want to see.
So for the layman like myself, you have your holster, which generally will grip your pistol around like the trigger guard or somewhere around there. And it fits the slide in there nice and easy. And then the trigger guard, there's like some sort of retention. There's usually like a screw or something that would increase or decrease the tension on your trigger guard. Well, the light on most guns goes on the rail underneath the slide on the frame, and that frame when you put a light on there is wider than your trigger. So the guard
Right.
in your holster is going to be expanded, so the gun will fit the holster, so it can't retain the trigger guard any further. So that's why.
Correct. It would just rattle around in there if you tried
Yeah,
to
it would not be
utilize the
tight
holster
at all.
without light.
You
You-
might as well have a 5-gallon bucket you throw it in and carry it around that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people are like, well, that's a lot to carry, especially in a concealed position. And that comes down to good holster design. Like I'm wearing right now. So you guys a view of this. Maybe I'll take some pictures and get it on the site. Right now, I am wearing an appendix carry holster with a Walther PDP compact. It's got a Trijicon RMR on it, and it's got a TLR7 light on it. And I also have an accessory pack on the same holster where I carry a tourniquet, because having some enhanced medical equipment on you, if you're in the defense mindset, is not a bad idea. And I also carry that in the woods too, because what if you're going over a log or something and you slip and you pierce your leg? It'd be nice. It'd be nice to not have to rig up a belt to stop the bleeding. So have some advanced medical. Yeah.
So I'm a tourniquet guy myself.
Mm-hmm.
I have one in each of my rigs. I have one in my backpack. If you see me with a backpack, I have a tourniquet. I have one in my hunting pack, and so yeah, I think those are the rats that we use. I have a soft T, and so yeah, there's.
I use a Cat 5, but soft T's are great too.
Mm-hmm.
They're all like the soft T, the Cat 5. Those are excellent. There's some other ones out there that are good ones. Just make sure you go through a reputable source for your tourniquets. I don't recommend Amazon because there's a lot of fake tourniquets for that one.
Yeah, I can't even remember the brand I bought. Look in the top of that pack right there. Should be a tourniquet right in that top sack. He's grabbing my tourniquet out of the top of that pack. It should be right there. That zipper, just pull that. Yep, should be right in there. Should be red. There's one more zipper on the front. So Dave's getting my tourniquet out of my pack, and that's a whole different story. I figured that, talking about defensive pistols and lights and stuff, if you have to use your pistol, there's a good chance that you're going to be in some sort of interaction where you might end up needing to render aid to yourself, So, yeah. I mean, I didn't want to make this about, defensive tactics and stuff, because it's a whole different level of.
Yeah, that's kind of like a whole different show that I could go on and on about. And there's a lot of people who know a lot more about it than me too.
Yeah.
But
being prepared is a big part of being prepared is a big part of all this stuff. You want to make sure that if you're gonna be ready, be fully ready. To help yourself or someone else. And I mainly carry them because I was in the fire department for a number of years as a volunteer, and you could randomly come across something. Like I'm thinking, like, if I have this with me and I randomly come across something, I could actually, you could save someone's life for a $15 item. And
and building a good trauma medical kit. I mean, with like everything for really bad bleed, a stop the bleed kit costs, I don't know, $70 to put a good one together, where you've got a couple of tourniquets, some hemostatic gauze, and chest seals. Like, that's life-saving equipment, and it doesn't weigh that much, it doesn't take up that much space, and you can always throw it in your pack. And it just makes a lot of sense to carry it. So I have some in my truck. I have some that I always carry, like, on my person. I have some in my pack, because stuff happens, and I'd rather be prepared.
So I just grabbed the tourniquet from Dave. It's the RATS tourniquet.
Okay.
Rapid Acquisition Tourniquet. So it's
yeah. Sounds good.
It's a pretty simple. It's a thicker elastic band. It has a metal mechanism. Do the 2-finger loop, run it through, cinch it tight, and you wrap it as many times as you can downward. But it's a pretty easy one to use. But it doesn't have a loop you slide over like the soft T.
Yeah.
It's a constrictor.
Yep.
So it's a pretty good. If you ever wrapped a rubber band around your finger a bunch of times and the tip turns purple, that's what this does.
That's basically what that does.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's kind of the concept on a lot of them, like using that bar to just twist it to get the tension you need after you've done a Velcro wrap. But yeah, I mean, doing that, having the training to actually use it appropriately is a skill that gives you just a little bit more confidence in the woods. So why not? And at the bare minimum, like, get yourself a little bit of wound stop agent, or when you cut yourself when you're skinning your next game. You know?
Simple things. I mean, so you're in Washington State, and a couple of years ago, there was a guy here who he was hunting with a buddy. And this is when I started like thinking about all these things. He was hunting with his buddy, and they were on some elk, and the guy had a crossbow. You might have heard about this, but the guy actually was in front of the guy with the crossbow, and the guy with the crossbow was going forward, and the guy in front stopped, and he just stabbed him with it. He didn't even shoot him with it. Stabbed him.
Oh yeah, they were both like looking to the side, and the guy in front stopped, and the person in back
rear-ending incident.
Yeah, and he just stuck him.
Stuck him, and he didn't even make it back to the truck.
Nope.
And that right there was like, oh my God, you know, that could happen to a lot of people. Like there's people that just, you know, they might walk around with an arrow on their quiver, doing some or arrow on their string, doing some still hunting. But when you're with somebody else, it's a whole different level of awareness. You have to totally be aware and don't take anything for granted, because the last thing you want to do is hurt someone on accident, and definitely your buddies. You know, you don't want to live with that. So I started getting quick clot. I got several quick clots. You know, I keep them in there, and I mean, whatever I can do to help. You know, until we get to someone more official that can render real aid. You know, at least something's better than nothing. And so that's why I started packing these things around. And then there's the incidental thing.
Add some combat gauze to that if you haven't done that, because that has a hemostatic agent in there that the surgeons don't have to remove like the quick clot does.
Mm-hmm.
Like the surgeons actually will have to
like cut that out.
Before they can fix it. Whereas if you go with a good combat gauze, there's a hemostatic agent in that it's a lot cleaner for the surgeons later on. They'll thank you.
Well, I have the combat gauze and chest seal, so just in case.
Yeah, we got the whole meal deal.
My pack is heavy, and I'm like, what can I do to lighten this? I'm like, nope, need that. Nope, I need that. Nope, all this stuff, you know. So, you know, it's just one of those things where you just want to be prepared. And I've seen car accidents. I'm in construction, so I drive quite a bit, and you know, things happen, and you just want to help if you can. So, yeah, man.
Yep.
Well, it sounds like you have everything you need to customize a rifle to someone depending on their size, and the knowledge, it sounds like, to go with it too. I mean, we're talking about, and you listed things like McMillan stocks, and you know, you're not just buying those things to fiddle with. I mean, you have to be skilled, because those cost money just to get. You know, if I hired a guy and he said, "Yeah, we're going to McMillan stock," and he's like, "Hey, man, we need to get another one because I screwed up this one." We're gonna have a conversation.
that would be a really expensive error.
It's like, oh man.
Yeah, your willingness to use them and handle them and stuff, because I mean, people are particular, and it you know, it speaks a lot of volumes to that. So, yeah,
no, and if you're going to put that kind of money down, it needs to be right. You know, it just like my formal training was as a jeweler, and that's kind of where I got into understanding about how to polish metals and you know, manufacturing fabrication processes and whatnot. And I remember when I went through that apprenticeship, my jeweler, or my master, basically, I asked him, like, well, what's good enough, right, at one point? And he said, it needs to be good enough for who it's for. And it kind of like cocked my head at him. For who it's for. He says, you don't know who it's for. And he had a picture of Christ on his workbench. And he says, you don't know who's getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it good enough for who it's for? And that always stuck with me, that like you always need to present your best work to everybody that you work for, because that is a reflection of how much you care about everybody else. So anytime I finish something and I'm proud of it, to this day, I think, well, it's good enough for who it's for.
Yeah, right. And And your who it's for is not just like Joe Schmo down the road. You're considering the top of the pickiness scale. You're like, if someone comes in here, it doesn't matter if they just want a basic thing or a super complex, high end, they want to spend $20,000-$30,000 on a rifle, then I'm going
Or
to
they
make
want to get a pistol for $400. Like, I'm going to
Yep.
make sure they get what they need.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. So your consideration of looking at the person and talking to them has nothing to do with the quality of product you're sending out. You're sending out top quality regardless, because you never know who it's for.
Yeah.
Tracking you. I just wanted to clarify that for, there's because I'm in the finished trades, and we deliver products to customers, and there's no good enough. You're like, people that say, oh, this is good enough. It can be better if it's good enough. It's not the best. It's just good enough is not a spectrum that we operate in. And so I really appreciate you saying that.
Well, yeah, because I know when I go to, purchase a rifle or even a custom rifle at that thing, I'm going to pick it up and be like, man, this is perfect. That's what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want to be the one to put the scratch on there,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like it when I can, especially when I can hand somebody something. Like I built a gun for a vet, and I have a soft spot for veterans who are getting into hunting.
Yeah, we all do.
He shot this rifle, and he said, I've shot guns all across the world, and this is the finest rifle I've ever shot. And, like, I almost just didn't believe him. I'm like, you've got to be,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to put my best work out there no matter what. And that doesn't mean that I don't always have room to improve.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you consider yourself an expert and you know everything, you don't know everything anymore.
You always have to be willing to learn. You're always looking to strive and become better.
Yeah, become better. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Those are all excellent characteristics, man. I really give you some kudos on all that stuff because I'm sitting here, I'm getting kind of like a tingly feeling like I'm going to just call up and order one of these things because I need to have something, specific.
Sounds like we need to take it. We need to
20, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like sitting here going, yeah. As soon as we get it going, we'll get it. The sooner you order, the sooner it gets here. Is the bottom line. I mean, if you
sounds
wait
like we made a
you're waiting
trip.
6 more
Sounds
months.
like we need to take a trip to Colville.
If you know any good turkey spots, we can talk about it next April.
Well, it's my property.
Looks like
so
we run
a 80-acre regenerative farm, and we're focused on encouraging wildlife biodiversity here on this farm. And man, we have a lot of turkeys here.
Well, Dave and I got skunked this past year, and I hunted with my son like a lot.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't get it done. I was calling them in, but they just were stopping.
Yeah, we went down to it was kind of middle of the day, so it's been a couple of days since we went into town, and I was like, well, let's just go down here and get a burger, and go back and make another MRE. So we went down to the town, and there's these guys in there in this little restaurant bar, and they're talking about how they shot 3 or 4 birds a piece, and it's just
we're like, what the heck?
Come to find out, they're on some private land deal, and they really had a good time, but they're from Alabama, and it was like such a coincidence that the guys we sat next to there for lunch were from Alabama, and I had this turkey call that was made in the town right next to their town. I said, "You ever seen one of these?" And he's like, "Oh, that's my buddy." Oh shit, really?
Yeah,
right. It was nuts.
Yeah.
It was the craziest thing ever.
You gotta be kidding me. We're gonna probably have them on the show here because they started talking about turkeys, and I was like blown away, next level blown away, because there's things that you never would consider that they're talking about. It's like, holy smokes! But before
that's gonna be a podcast to listen to.
Before we wrap up, you're in the northeastern part of our state, and a lot of people would be like, can we communicate through Zoom? Can we do like an online meeting? What does your process look like for doing something like that, if it's even possible? Or would you prefer, special trip right away, or just, if you can do the Zoom meeting type thing, do that, get the feel, and then I have a couple follow-up questions based on your response from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the biggie is if you're not in this area, give me a call and we can talk about what you want to do. And I'll be honest, if it's something that I either can or cannot do, I'm not in the business of telling people that I'm going to be the guy who can make the absolute best Beretta 92 for them. That would be Lancaster Tactical. Go to him.
Yeah, right.
Because he's the expert on that, right? But if it's something that is going to be in my wheelhouse to be able to do for you, we'll discuss whether we need to have you on site or what to get you set up. But, shoot me a message through Instagram. That's Blue Ridge Rifle. That's the best way to get a hold of me because my wife mercifully manages my social media because I'm terrible at it. So she lets me know when people message me on that, and we can start a conversation from there.
So at some point in time, there's a mandatory. You have to come in here because we're going to measure, we're going to fit and finish to you specifically. We can't do that through the phone or Zoom. We have to make sure you're.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well if we're gonna fit your entire weapon system to you, because things like your scope, I can't mount your scope for you without you here. And I promise you, it will be an eye opener to have it done correctly compared to having the guy at the gun counter at the sporting goods store do it. Because a lot of people, they just kind of try to get it level, try to get the eye relief about right, and put it on the bore sight kilometer, and that's the end of it. It's more involved than that to do it correctly. But when it's done right, you're going to be looking through a crosshair that is in focus on a target that is in focus all the time, every time.
So
it's going to come to you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Huh?
Go ahead. Sorry.
And it's going to come to your eye like instantly. So
if I call you up and I say, Ryan, I'm interested in a rifle. Okay, we're going to talk about it. We talk about our things. We get everything dialed in. The length of pull, all the components are correct. And you say, come on over to pick it up. Last thing we're going to do is mount your scope. Once I mount your scope, you're taking it from there, or am I taking it home at that point?
Yeah, well, you can do your FFL paperwork right here, or I can ship to the FFL of your choice if that was necessary, or if there was other work that we wanted to do after the scope was mounted, then I could hold on to it and then ship it to your FFL, or again, you could come back. It doesn't matter. Obviously, we're doing paperwork.
Yeah, so all paperwork aside, the last thing you're going to do is scope mount.
Generally, that's going to be about the last thing. Yeah.
And that sounds like a fun deal.
Yeah, that sounds actually really interesting. Just
like a good time.
Yeah, and then we can.
Well, just doing the whole build and everything like that too. I mean, obviously Ryan's gonna be building it, but like you are part of the process because he needs to know, your cheek, your, where your eye lines up with the scope, like how long your arms are. I have freakishly long arms for being as short as I am, so trying to get the rifle to fit me just right. Oh yeah, I'm 5'9", but my wingspan is like 6'1".
Yeah. So what's your draw length?
29 inches.
29 inches. You're so lucky. You can go with a regular bow.
Yep. 29.70. Let's go.
Do you?
I have a 31-inch draw.
Oh, so you must be pretty tall then. 6'2"?
No, I'm just 6 flat.
Oh, you got long arms like me.
Yeah, I'm tall, skinny, can't keep fat on to save my life.
Yep, that's me. Just a shorter version.
Yeah. Yep, that's awesome. Do you do you take the rifle after it's all done, paperwork squared away? If I'm in another state, you just ship it right over there to the FFL, whatever. If it's in Wyoming, you could ship it to whoever's there. And then customer comes to the store at the FFL, pays whatever they need to pay it for a transfer fee or whatever, a shipping or whatever, and then it's all done from there. It's good to go.
Yeah, pretty much. That's just the way any transfers is going to work. Is I can basically transfer it from FFL to FFL. That piece of it is just kind of, there's no paperwork on your end for that. That's all on my end. And then you would basically do your 4473 mixed check or whatever your state happens to require with that FFL.
I don't want to get super specific,
Yeah.
because it gets crazy. You start asking a million questions, and I got them. So, but as far as warranties go, you buy a rifle from you. What does that come with? What's the the cherry on top?
Yeah. If I'm let's if there's a problem with that rifle and I'm still in business and breathing, I'm gonna try to make that problem right.
Mm-hmm. If it's a manufacturer's defect, of course, you're default to the manufacturer of that product to get it replaced or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of the parts that I put in a rifle are kind of set up by that same sort of ironclad warranty. That's one of the reasons why we wouldn't be putting just any old action in there, putting a Terminus action in there. Those things are backed up. Mm-hmm. You go with a Trigicon scope. I mean, these days scope warranties are all pretty great. I would say mostly thanks to Vortex, because Vortex really pushed their warranty program very hard, and everybody just went, "Oh, we need to back our scopes up for life, because otherwise we're not going to be in business."
Yeah.
So thank you, Vortex, for that.
Yeah, no, big shout out. Yeah, for real.
Because it went to just about every other manufacturer. They followed suit. But no, I mean, if there's a problem, we're going to figure it out and fix it. And I just want people to be happy with their stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. And,
if you drop it down a mountainside and it's your fault, I expect a certain degree of honesty and meeting me halfway.
Yeah, how did this thing get bent in half? I don't know. It came that way. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
It came that way. Yeah. Not when you left the shop with it.
This thing don't shoot straight. The barrel's shaped like a U. Get out of here with that.
Yeah. No, what did you do?
Right.
Yeah, reasonableness goes a long way. So,
yeah.
I think if somebody, a lot of people I deal with, they're pretty honest as far as if they spend a bunch of money on something, they usually treat it pretty well. And if they make a mistake, they're usually up for like, man, I just need this thing fixed. What's it cost? And aside from all those human errors that happen, just something happens with the trigger group, or the bolt doesn't shut right, and something weird happens. It's good to know that it's covered, and that you're going to stand behind it as long as you're breathing in business. And the quality products that go into sounds like the builds are top notch. I looked at the Terminus action online while we were talking here, and those things look incredible. If you want like a Gucci action, that is the one.
Yeah.
That thing is nice.
Yeah. No, and like if you're gonna, I like to think of it in terms of if this is the rifle that is gonna be your go-to rifle, this is the one that you're gonna have, or this is the one pistol you're gonna have, what would you get, right? And I like to think of it in those terms. Get something really high quality that you're going to be happy to use a ton. Because if you're really familiar with that thing, if that thing fits you like a glove, you're going to use it and you're going to be good with it. Having a gun be fun helps make it more accurate, because you're going to run a lot more rounds through it. Simple as that.
Yeah, man. Awesome statement. And I'm excited to get my hands on one.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a little bit of a lead time, but I'm going to be calling you here pretty quick just to start getting the brainstorming together and see what we can put together and go from there. But I probably won't be going with the 6.5 just because of Dave here.
No, and
he's all about that 6.5,
Just because everybody thinks the 6.5
Devin's
mean you have to too.
Devin's
granted,
nice.
Full disclosure, I have some 6.5s in my household.
No, I'm just saying that because, me and Dave have, when we go hunting, we have long conversations about 6.5s and ballistic charts. And I start looking at all these little nuances. I'm like, oh man, we're kind of like splitting hairs. It's like, I get it. Like in competition, competitions are way more, tight. Like if you look at any Olympic competition, I mean, the difference between a gold and not placing is very minute. It can be hundredths of a second, so, and same thing in shooting, you're talking about thousandths of an inch. If it's not grouping within the thousandths of an inch, you could lose a competition by 1 or 2 thousandths of an inch, so that's a very small margin. So you have to split the hair, for the hunting guys.
Dinner plate.
Anybody can shoot the 6.5. It's fine. I'm not hating on you. I like to have a good time with Dave here.
Yeah, he likes to give me a hard time. It's all right. It was bought for my son. I actually shoot a 308. And my rifle's heavier than hell.
Me too. And I'm not gonna tell you what my go-to hunting rifle is, because I have yet to build one for myself, unfortunately.
I'll tell you something funny.
Have no shoes kind of thing.
I've known Dave for 25-ish years, 26 years, and every time he gets a 300 Win Mag, it isn't 6 months before he's selling it. He's like, man, do you know anybody looking for a 300 Win Mag?
But I always buy one.
Are you just hitting your shoulder too hard? Is that the problem?
Yeah, it just kicks like a freaking mule. A neighbor of mine was selling one, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll buy that. Shot it a couple times. I was like, I wonder if Luke is looking for a 300 Win Mag. Like, man,
I know we're getting into another rabbit hole, but have you considered putting a brake on that?
You know what? The 2 or 3 that I owned, I never did have a brake on them, but I know the next rifle that I purchased for myself is definitely going to have a muzzle brake on it. So I'm looking at a 6.8 Western with a brake on it. I know I'm putting a brake on my son's 6.5, which he doesn't need it, but it's good just to...
Or go all the way and get a suppressor, because the suppressor, depending on the configuration, is going to have some of the same benefits as a muzzle brake.
Yeah.
You don't have to make yourself deaf.
The suppressor, I was very impressed. You know, like I've shot suppressed pistols, and you know, you're like, oh, that's a lot more quiet. You know, it's not silent by any means, but when I got a suppressor for a rifle, it was very tolerable. And you're sitting here going, this is some of them were just below, like the one I have is just below 22. The sound of a 22 rifle, it's not loud at all. So I did a video with unsuppressed and suppressed, and you're like, dude, I will never shoot this rifle without the suppressor on it again. There's no reason to, because it does the same thing I'm trying to accomplish. But
so Ryan, if I was to get a suppressor on a rifle that you were building for me, can I do all my paperwork through you?
Not right now, but and this has to do with starting a business and doing all your paperwork with the ATF. It takes time to get things done. The ATF does the special occupational tax that I would need to pay for suppressors. They do their tax year really weird. It starts in July. So I'll be doing my paperwork this week, basically, for that, to make sure that I can do that paperwork as well. Because otherwise I would have been paying a bunch of money for, half a year's worth of the tax. Like, they don't prorate it.
So the tax is flat. It's not based on volume or sales or anything?
Yeah, there is a proration on your volume, but it's like a stepped proration. If you do, below X amount, you pay this much. If you do above X amount, you pay this much. And obviously I'll be in the below group, but you still don't want to pay a bunch of extra money for something that you're only going to use for half the time, especially when you know you're getting off your feet anyway, and you're probably not going to sell those items until after that rollover period anyway. So I figured I'd throw the money into actions and inventory instead.
Yeah, it's a business too, all the business decisions that come along with it. It's like you gotta really account for everything. And I've been in business now 17 years, so it's never easy, and there's always considerations to be made. But man, I wish you the best.
The regulatory structure of guns is so simple and easy, right?
Yeah. It's like having a daycare.
Oh my God,
nothing to it.
Nothing to it. Fine.
Anybody can do it. Doesn't really. Yeah, you cross your T's and dot your I's, and you're good. So I don't think I have any more questions.
Not really. I mean, it sounds like you hit up Ryan at Blue Ridge Rifles, and he's basically just going to hook you up with everything that you need.
Yep.
One last question, actually.
Here we go.
Sure.
Is there any caliber restrictions on what you will manufacture
or build?
Yeah. Is there any one that you're like, I'm not going to do these?
I don't really have an interest in building any sort of like BMG sorts of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That seems, it just doesn't fall under the heading of practical to me. Or and I know it's practical for some people, but the people for whom it is practical for need to go to a defense supplier, not me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would think like those large caliber. So you would do 338 Lapua.
I would consider it, yeah.
Okay. So the 50 BMG is just a different beast together.
That's not necessarily even like a hunting rifle.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, we're talking about two different things, with the 50. But so you basically build any spectrum of hunting caliber rifle in a custom format designed to fit you specifically.
Correct.
Sold.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
So if anybody wants to get so if anybody wants to get in reach with you, where can they reach you? Is it just specifically Instagram? I know you have a website up.
Yep.
Where can people actually get pricing?
Most of the way up. It is Blue Ridge Rifle. It's BlueRidgeRifle.com. I'm having an absolute brain fade at this point. Yes, BlueRidgeRifle.com. And you can see my website under construction right now. Obviously, I'll still be building stuff online, but the better way to get a hold of me is honestly shoot me a message on Instagram, and we'll have a chat about what you want and whether or not I'd be the right fit to build it for you.
And what's your Instagram handle?
It is Blue Ridge Rifle.
Nice.
Yeah, simple.
Okay, Blue Ridge Rifles.
Yep. Yeah.
All right,
Ryan.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. It has been an absolute treat. Anytime you want to talk guns, give me a call.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're looking for a custom rifle, hit Ryan up, and also just tell him that the Ridgeline Hunting Podcast sent you over. So
yeah, I'd love to know why they gave me a call.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you, Ryan, and thank you to all the listeners. We'll catch you next time.
Good night.
All right.